Hey everybody, so today I'm going to be replacing my Capital Grille stove with a new Camplux 2-burner stove. The Capital Grille stove, we're not very happy with it. It hasn't been performing very well. I think you're supposed to use it as an actual grill, but it just doesn't get hot enough. And for the things that we want to use it for, which is like boiling spaghetti noodles or cooking hot dogs or something like that, which requires concentrated heat, the grill just doesn't work. And I just feel weird throwing a steak on this Capital Grille. So here's the Capital Grille that we're going to be removing today. I did some rough measurements and it looks like it should actually fit the Camplux. It might need a spacer or something like that. We'll see what happens. I'm going to start by removing the cover, which is 4 screws in the back here, and then I'll go ahead and move on to this grill here. If you look underneath, there is a quick connect hose that's hooked up to the bottom, and I'm really hoping that quick connect hose will hook up to the Camplux stove too. We'll see. All right, here's the grill. Looks like it's going to be pretty straightforward. 4 screws, and 1 in each corner. And then I think there's enough clearance around the bottom that it'll just pop out of the top. All right, so I have all 4 screws removed. The stove is, or I should say, the grill is now loose. But what I need to do is remove the quick connect hose from the grill. And once I do that, the entire thing will be able to be removed. All right, in case you were wondering, it did require a 3/4 inch wrench to remove that. I also used just like a standard crescent wrench. Here you can see, yeah, it's 3/4 inch. So here's the hoping that actually fits on the new stove. All right, so let's pull this grill out. According to the directions, the cutout needs to be 16¼ inches wide by 11½ inches tall, and it's too big. I'm going to see if I can come up with a creative way to make this size small. I don't know if it's going to involve me getting a piece of sheet metal and cutting it out, or maybe I will just get a piece of plywood, since that's what traditional countertops are made of. After removing the Capital Grille, I had to come up with a way to make the hole smaller that the Camplux grill would fit into. It turns out the Camplux grill is about 1 inch smaller in either direction, and it would fall through the hole where the Capital Grille was. What I ended up doing is buying a 2x2 piece of plywood that came from Menards. I ended up getting it's called a handy panel. And my thought was, while this is metal, the old campers used to have countertop material. In fact, the Camplux stove is designed to be mounted in a countertop. So there shouldn't be any risk as long as we take care of and keep an eye on the surface. That's how I did it. I took a piece of 2x2 plywood, and I measured the dimensions of not only the hole, but also the bottom of the stove. And I cut the dimensions of the board so that it covered the hole. And then I cut out a hole in the board so that it's big enough for the stove. When you look at the stove, there are labels around the outside of it. You have to peel these labels off because they are going to be very frustrating when you try to get the stove in. The second thing I needed to point out to you is right here, there is little tabs here. Let's give it a test run. Since it's kind of tight, that was intentional. It might be a little tough at first. In fact, I'm just going to set it down over here and then lift the board up around it like you're putting on a pair of pants. I'm going to start with the back, work my way up like this, and as you slide it up, it meets up, and now I I can set this in here. I don't know why that's unhooked. And there you go. Okay, so next thing we are doing is painting the wooden platform that is going to hold the Camplux outdoor stove. If you recall earlier, I cut out the board so that it'll fit the hole properly and support the stove. Here is how it looks. We're using some paint. It's just this Pittsburgh Ultra cheap exterior paint that is purchased from Menards. It has a semi-gloss color to it, and it's exterior paint because the assumption is that since this is in our camper, eventually it will get rained on, and I did not want it to get ruined. So we're just going to do the outside and the top and the sides because those are the only two sides that are going to be exposed. Probably tomorrow we might paint the bottoms. I don't know. Might not really have a need for it. All right, guys, it's cold out. Really looking forward to spring. But I made more progress on the mount for the stove. I think I'm going to get as far as actually installing it today. Let me show you how it looks. So here you can see I took some stainless screws. They're number 8, 3/4 of an inch screw, and pre-drilled some pilot holes through the wood board that's going to support the stove. I'm going to go now and grab that stove and set it in here, see if it fits okay, and see if we can get her hooked up. All right, how awesome is this? It fit perfectly. It looks great. It's set straight down in there. No movement. I mean, there's a little movement right now, but I'm going to tighten it down and secure it with these 2 screws here. Up underneath, you can see that the stove fit in perfectly through that wood board, and there's going to be enough clearance there for the gas hose to get through, mounted to the back here, and then that'll run down, of course, to the nozzle there. So let's see if we can get everything cinched down. All right, before we get to the mounting, I realized that after I put everything on here, I couldn't turn the knobs. They were pressed down weird, and it just wasn't looking right. So I discovered that there are mounting holes underneath, and that'll help prevent the stove from moving around inside there. There's 4 of them. I'll probably continue to use the stainless steel screws that I use to hold down the board. I'm going to put the 4 in there, and then the 2 screws will hold the stainless steel cooking surface down to the stove. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, the stove is secured with the stainless steel screws. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the cooking surface, or whatever, the cover for the stove, back on and see if everything fits okay. All right, here you go. It is hooked up. It is secured with stainless screws. There's the screws on the side that came with the stove that held the top down. Down below, the Capital Grille hose that came with the quick disconnect hose that came with my camper actually fit. I was able to tie it down or tighten it down, and you can see what the bottom of it looks like. I reattached that hose underneath of the tray, and then it'll hook up to that quick disconnect there. All right, next thing I'm going to do is hook up the cover. Talked to my wife, and she said that she would like to have the cover there because it has the 2 wings on the side, which prevent the crosswinds from occurring and allow her to boil things without the gas being disruptive. So I'm going to end up screwing it down to the back of the wood right here. Yeah, here's how it turned out. The cover is on. It fits really nice. The hose is secured underneath. I put that mount back on there, and it wraps underneath, of course, and fits perfectly. I'm going to open up this top. Sides slide out to prevent the wind. I'm trying to do this one-handed, so there you go. It looks like exactly how I wanted. So bring on camping season and good food. All right, so we are done. I have the stove put together, it's installed, the hose is hooked up, everything looks and works great. I have the top installed, and now all we need is camping season. Thanks for watching.